Hello, everyone. My name is Reza, and I'm one of the film programmers for this year's Real World Film Festival. I'm so glad to be here with Burjkai Ahmed, the filmmaker of In the Rumbling Valley of Motherland. Thank you so much, Burjkai, for joining us today. So journalism and in particular, Afghan women working in this industry is in the center of your film. So could you please tell us what inspired you to make a documentary about Zan TV in Kabul?
I was interested in Zan TV because I'm from Afghanistan myself. So naturally women's issues, women's accomplishments are important for me. And in 2018, when the Taliban talks started, actively taking place in Doha, I knew very well that women's rights and freedom of expression is at stake. And then I came across some media reports on this women's TV network that was had just started functioning since 2017, pretty new, about a year old. I knew immediately that this organization would have a lot to lose if these peace talks go through. And so I just had to, document what was happening to the station, because it is about a group of young women who came of age during the sort of the digital age, in the past 20 years. And that's their Afghanistan has been the Afghanistan of the digital age. So I just wanted to capture their life because I wasn't expecting things to turn out that well, in all honesty.
Great. And how did you get to know them? How did you meet them, the people in Zan TV?
Right. Well, I have been in and out of Afghanistan for a long time, working in different organizations and that. So I have contacts and friends who you rely on. And Afghans, like when we meet one another, it's a lot of it is through people. So through trustworthy people, somebody says, "Hey, Burjkai wants to talk to you," and and this and this. And so I linked up with Shikufa at Zan TV, and I actually first got connected with Hamid Samar, who. He and his mother were sort of the organizers of the news network, but he's not a journalist. He manages the business side of it. And then he connected me to the team, and we just liked each other. They allowed me into their lives. A lot of this kind of filmmaking is around sort of relationship, like we became friends. So the more I became friends with them, the more they allowed me to enter their day-to-day process. But very much it's, getting access to this kind of an organization in a country like Afghanistan. It's very much begins with a friendship or trust.
Yeah, and speaking of friendship, actually you go beyond their day-to-day work, and you got access actually to their family, and you follow them even after working hours. And could you please tell us more about?
Yes, well, when it comes to a family, I didn't have access to all of their families, not all of them, some of them, and then some of them also there was, regulations that I had to honor. So for instance, with Najwa, for instance, her mom doesn't speak without Najwa beside her. Like there's certain sort of they don't want to be sort of, that, or Shukufa's family is not interviewed at all in it. And Nazanin's mom allowed us to film her from her back, not showing her face, because she came of age during the Taliban time. And so she was concerned. So I had access, but, to limitations that suited that each family's needs. And, I had to honor that because, Afghanistan is complex. But yes, we had a good enough friendship that we could get into the car. Like once the work done is the day is done, and we'd grab ice cream and listen to music in the car and drive over, eat food, talk with the camera off as well. So yes, we definitely got to know each other well. And we've also stayed in contact, through the pandemic and then through this, unfolding few months. Yeah.
Amazing. And how long did it take actually to complete the film, the filming process?
I mean, I started filming them in 2018, 2019, and then early, just before the pandemic, Shikufa was sending me some material as well. And so, 2 years of filming, and then just recent, the film screened the Doxa Documentary Festival first. That's where it screened in May. So it really just finished about a month before Doxa. So, April. So it took a while because I was waiting to see what would happen with the peace talks, because I had news interviews of Shikupa talking about the peace talks, and I wasn't sure how to insert that in if I didn't really know what the outcome would have been. So in many ways, it got delayed a bit because of that. But yeah, and unfortunately, the timing of it is it's unfortunate, is all I can say.
Yeah,
how it ended.
I understand. And speaking of the peace talks, actually, you predicted the current situation in Afghanistan, starting 2018. And do Afghan women feel betrayed by the US Taliban peace talks? Did anyone represent them in those talks?
Well, I mean, it's a very good question that you ask. Did Afghan women feel betrayed, right? Because in many ways, I was feeling betrayed when I started filming this film, because my mom was passing away, and when the Taliban talks started, right? Yeah. So when you watch your mom, lives pass away, and you see this trajectory of Afghanistan kind of going back, naturally, I was feeling betrayed. The journalists in the film were too busy trying to stay on top of information to show any betrayal. Do you know what I mean? But there was constant talk, because there was only 4 women allowed to participate in one portion of the talks. And then at another portion of the talks, there was 2 women, and then again 4 women. So that's a very small minority of women selected by the group that is against us. It's not really. So yes, Afghan women did feel betrayed, but I also think our government felt betrayed, because I don't know if many people know this, but the Afghan government was not allowed to participate in the peace talks. So Afghans were not allowed to participate in the peace talks. So in many ways, this big decision making was simply in the hands of outsiders who selected just 4 women to come and participate, and had very limited participation. So it's a huge betrayal. Imagine, as a family unit, you, your partner, your kids, outsiders are making decisions about your household and deciding who gets taken away, who remains with whom, and the family doesn't have a say. That's exactly what happened to Afghanistan. So it's an absolute betrayal, and that's the sad reality.
Yeah. And how do you see the future of Afghanistan? Do you see any light at the end of tunnel, or with the current situation?
Well, I think we had a very interesting panel where the women also talked about this. The current situation is terrible, and that's the reality. And in Afghanistan, we have, women's rights have diminished immensely. We've seen that. Education is no longer a possibility. Women can't work in many fields. News outlets have been censored and shut down. So there's been a very quick, drastic change, already. And then we're foreseeing winter arriving, and the hardships that brings for a country that's already suffering. So I expect the next bit of time to be very, very tough and hard. What will happen in a year? Could we regain our rights? Could there be a rain, like some kind of sunshine at the end of this terrible storm? Maybe. I say maybe, because if I was to say no, then what's the point of living? What is the point of being a person? Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to be an Afghan that is going to allow myself permission to live every day. And I'm going to believe that this will not last forever, because the other option is no option. So I'm just going to follow my survival instinct and go with that idea.
Mm-hmm. And in this digital era, it's, all the social media platforms, and it's educated people, educated Afghan people, in particular, educated women in Afghanistan. Do you think they can challenge Taliban's fundamental this time, or it would be the same as before 2000? Because in,
say that it will,
sorry interrupting
that's
you,
very
because
no,
in
no,
the
it's okay.
news, because in the news I've read and heard about some protests by Afghan women that they screaming out their rights in Kabul, in Herat, and in some major cities. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right that the digital age is making a difference, right? Because, you know, simple tools like our iPhone, these kinds of things are allowing people to share their voice and express them. And there's also more of a unified sort of resistance that's forming, where it's not like a solitary woman that's going out and holding up a banner or something. Women are gathering in groups and this information is being shared. So I don't think that it is, you're right, it's not the 2000. Prior to 2000 or 1996. It is a new generation using new tools and who are very connected to the outside world. So that's where the hope comes in, right? So hopefully the international community pays attention, because that's what's necessary. We need the international community to amplify these women's voices. We need people to continue sharing their messages on Twitter and Instagram and all of that, so that it's not deafened, right? The more we do that, it's likely that the imposed ideas of what the Taliban would like to see, how far they would like to go, and how far they would like to go is probably how far ISIS went in Syria or is doing in Syria, can be possibly prevented. So the onus is on us, those, you know, people who are looking at those tweets and Instagram and things like that, who might think that we don't play a role and we're not. What can we do for Afghan women and girls? What can we do? Well, yeah, you can do something. You can share that tweet. You can give a platform to their voice. So I'm hoping that continues, because we are seeing that.
So would you see some changes actually in journalism in Afghanistan with all these technologies around, that even Afghan female can use it and to speak up about the issues that they are suffering from?
Yeah, I think we've already seen a lot of citizen journalists, right? We've already seen it. So although the news outlets might not have, you know, I think Nazanin told me there's one news network that has one woman morning show host. We might not see the women appear on the, like, as hosts or journalists as much, but then we have, you know, the young women or older women being citizen journalists and updating the globe about what's happening in their village, in their town, in their city, in their school, in their work. So citizen journalism is an active part of Afghan society right now in many ways.
So go back to the filming process of your documentary. Even during that time, it was a kind of risky job that you took, because filming in Afghanistan is not the same as the other places, especially when you are following some journalists there. So with all those suicide bombers around, so could you please tell us more about, I mean, how could you manage to go and follow these people?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a very good question. You know, in many ways, when we enter, like as documentary filmmakers, when we enter, you know, a world like that, where there's insecurity, in a sense of like bomb attacks or just dangers, and then also insecurity in the sense that these are women being followed out in the street with a camera, that gets more attention to these women, which they might not want, because that can also amplify the danger for them. You do have to make some decisions on how do I approach this. That's important. So number one, it's, you know, you have to limit how much attention comes to the women, which means you have to reduce your crew to as little as possible, so that they don't look like they're being showcased, because that's the last thing you want to do. One, it'll put their life in danger, you know, in that sense. And that's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to film somebody and put their life in danger. Their life is already in danger. So how do you navigate that? So one of the ways that, you know, that we're navigating is making it a really small crew, and that it shows in the production. There's no, you know, shyness about that. You know, it's a small film. And the other thing is like for inside, limiting how much male filming was being done, so that the women could be comfortable. So I had to train a young woman, bring her in, and she had no camera experience, but she got along with the team. The team really liked her. So I gave her a camera and trained her so that she could do some filming. And I only brought the male crew only inside the station during the election. So the male crew is only inside the like in the studio, in the news network programs when they're like covering the elections. But all outside, when I was exiting out with them, it was just me and the public, like the security or the police and all that. They just thought that I was with them, like I was on TV journalist. So there was no attention in that sense, in terms of, you know, passing security and things like that. They would show their press pass to get across one corner of Kabul to another, or to enter a building, and then they would just, I would pretend like I'm with them. The other thing that we had to do, and it was a tough decision, but you know, it's you have to do these things. I don't know if you noticed, but their station is so, like, they're so underfunded. Many of like the big news networks in Kabul, you will see people have bulletproof vests and things like that in Kabul. They didn't have any of that. They didn't. They just didn't. There was no funding for it, and so then you have to make these awkward decisions where you're like, do I wear my bulletproof vest if they're not wearing theirs? Okay, I only have one. Do I give it to her or do I give it to her? How does that work? Do you know what I mean? So then you just have to decide that, hey, I'm in for the ride with you. We'll all remove our bulletproof vest then, because nobody has it. And we go on this ride together. We take the same risks. And I think you have to do that. So, you know, and we just kind of, you know, that's how you do things in these kind of countries. Yeah. Yeah,
great job. And apart from those risks that you said, how about the reaction of their families? Because it's not easy in a society like Afghanistan, actually, for women to work, and especially in the field of journalism. So what was the reaction of their families?
I think most of the four women in my film, each of them have a different family. They have a different families have different ideologies, right? So like Khalida and Shakufa, their family had no issues with them being journalists, fully supported them, all of that, right? With Najwa and Firishta, for instance, there's, you know, during the elections, if you notice on the most dangerous day, their families didn't allow them to come to work that day. And, you know, it's noted. So every family sort of reacts differently. But most of their family, the women in the news network, these are women who fought to get where they are, and they've received the approval of their family by this point. Do you know what I mean? But what happens is that the insecurity was more like for Najwa, for instance, in the film, there was this constant, her mom was always worried, the insecurity. So whenever things would get dangerous, there would be a push and a pull for her. You have to stay home. You can't go to dangerous sites. That was it for her. The rest were, they had their family's support. Yeah.
Amazing. And was there anyone else that you shoot and you followed, but at the end, during the editing, you decided?
Yes, there was one young woman, and that's because she got married. And so I removed her entire storyline. And that's because she's married, she's living in a new home, and she has a husband who did not know that he was going to marry someone that was going to be in a documentary that may or may not be screened on YouTube or blah, blah, blah. So again, that's a decision that I had to make, because do I want her to suffer? Do I want her life to be easy? Do I want to complicate her life? Right? It's a whole new family for her, a family that didn't know about this. So that had to be removed. The other thing I had to do, I don't know if you've noticed in the film, but there's a lot of silence in the film. And that's because when you're filming in the news network, there's a lot of information going on around you. A lot of personal details are falling in the audio and in the sound. And, you know, I had to come up with this, like there's someone's name being thrown in, matched up with someone else, somebody's seeing somebody, some phone number is being dropped. It's like, what do I do with that? Because if you're from Afghanistan, you listen to it, you can get intel on these women that might not be safe for them. So then I had to come up with a soundscape that where we could silence and remove some of that audio so that you don't hear like Shikufa say her phone number in the background, for instance, to a source while we're filming Najwa in front of us. That kind of care so that their family would not be impacted, or maybe their family didn't want those kinds of reveals,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And over the past 2 decades, actually, there have been so many, not so many, but there have been foreigners, broadcasters in Afghanistan who worked together and collaborated with local journalism. So how did you see the collaboration with them actually? Was it helpful to improve the industry in Afghanistan, or how did you see that?
So do you mean in terms of, like, say, for instance, Al Jazeera or CNN or these kind of people coming in and hiring Afghan journalists?
Yes.
Like that. Well, I didn't see it happening to Zan TV. I saw it happening with maybe one of the largest stations like Tolo or something like that. But I didn't see it happen for Zan TV. There was more, the Zan TV journalists were more than, they were being profiled for German TV, Al Jazeera, CNN. They were each being profiled as a news story, but not being given agency or power to create the story. Mm-hmm. That wasn't happening. Maybe that changed later on, but definitely not with Zan TV. So I can only speak of what I saw at Zan TV. In the bigger stations, I know it happened with Tolo, and the New York Times, for instance, has journalists that are Afghan that report for them, but I didn't see it happen for Zan TV. Not that there wasn't opportunities. These women were ready to do it. It's just, I don't think they were offered.
So I know that for the safety of those people appeared in your documentary, you cannot go over all the details right now, but could you please give us a general update about the subjects of your film? Are they still in Afghanistan or out, or?
Right. So, well, thankfully, one of the subjects finished up. It's not a problem. In the film, you see her talking about getting ready to leave and coming to Canada, and she came to Canada a year ago. So she left, in the early kind of phase. Her mom was a judge as well. The other two, Shikufa and Khalida, in the film are in Canada right now. They've just arrived. So in the midst of the chaos of the Taliban's arrival in August, mid-August, end of August, Canada was able to bring them out. One journalist from the film is still left behind. So unfortunately, she has not been able to get out. And Najwa, also from the film, went to Sweden because in 2019, she was awarded the activism award in Sweden, one of the biggest activism awards in Sweden. So she's safe and well in Sweden. Yeah.
Great to hear, and I'm really hopeful that the last one actually can get out of Afghanistan safely. So could you please talk about, your next project? Are you working on any projects that might happen in Afghanistan or somewhere else?
Oh my God, you know what, Reza, it's so sad because when I was making this film, I thought this is it. This is like my last film about Afghanistan.
No,
I thought
don't say that.
Yeah. No, seriously. I thought, you know what? Like halfway through filming, when I was filming them cover the elections and stuff, I thought, oh, this is it. This film is going to end. The ending might not be so happy, but these women are going to stay. They're going to continue working, and life will be a little bit difficult, but then they will get through it. Do you know what I mean? And I'm done. I've done my job with Afghanistan. And then now you see this, and so now I think, oh no, the story is not that, but Afghanistan, the story is not done. It's still unfinished, so I probably will return to another story about Afghanistan.
So what do you see the future of filmmaking and especially documentary making in Afghanistan? Do you think it's over, or there might be a hope actually for some filmmakers to continue their work and their career?
I mean, it's First of all, it's a little sad because a lot of artists and filmmakers and journalists and intellectuals in general, creatives, they've had to flee, right? So there's a bit of a brain drain right now. Not all of them, but certainly a big population has had to leave, right? So I expect to see a lot of expat Afghans creating stories about Afghanistan naturally. Inside Afghanistan, I think, again, because we're in this digital age where technology can allow us to do it and make films, and editing apps are easy and things like that, I think the stories will come out. And, very much like, in Iran, for instance, when, even now, where there's a lot of censorship, you get people to become very creative in how they make films and share stories. So in many ways, I don't see that they would stop sharing the stories, the filmmakers and storytellers inside Afghanistan. I think they're going to get really creative about it. It'll be very risky. And then I think for filmmakers like myself, because I like to be on the ground, like in the ground, like that's kind of like what I like. I'm just waiting to see like what's happening with the airport. Like, can I still go to Afghanistan with my Canadian passport that says born in Kabul? Because until before the Taliban's arrival, that's all I needed. I didn't have to validate myself as I am an Afghan, I need a visa, I need an Afghan passport. None of that was necessary. I arrived in Kabul airport, they looked at my passport, they said, oh yeah, born in Kabul, you're an Afghan, you get in. That's it. That was all that was needed. It was a very simple entry and exit, right? But what happens now? Now the country's name is changing. We have a new flag. What passport do I get? Can I enter? Can I get a visa? So there's all of the logistics of it is kind of, yeah, keeping me a bit paralyzed. Yeah.
I see, but I'm really hopeful that you can make it one day, and we need actually to.
Yeah, I would like to.
We need to hear stories from Afghan filmmakers, Afghan storytellers, and yes. because I can remember that prior to 2000, actually during the first Taliban era, actually there was no image from Afghanistan. So I mean, there was no film, no image that people can see and can understand what's going on in Afghanistan. But over the past 2 decades, there have been so many filmmakers, there have been so many storytellers that they could share their stories, their backgrounds with the rest of the world, and it was great. And yeah. I'm really hopeful you can continue actually your careers. So it was a great and perfect conversation today. So is there anything else that I didn't ask or you want to add, or any thank you to your team that you would like to say now?
Well, I think, I think that in general, I just want Afghan women to keep the spirit up. Mm-hmm. Let's not see the worst. There's no benefit to that, right? I'm really looking forward to the screening, the in-person screening with Real World. The women are going to be there. I hope an audience comes and supports them. Khalida is going to be there, Farisha is going to be there, Shakufa is going to be there for the screening. So I'm really excited for that. And I don't have any other questions that I think you should ask. I just hope that the international community and the world continues to give Afghan women space and platform and amplifies their voices. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much
for sharing your film with us. And it was very nice to meet you. And I really hope that everyone enjoyed this conversation and the documentary itself, as I did. And please, for more information, visit our website, realworld.ca, for our screenings and year-round programs. Thank you and take care.
Yeah. Great, congratulations on your festival too. Bye.
Thank you.